So excited to dive in and get us underway. Dive in literally and figuratively, as we are joined all the way in the Seychelles by Sheena Talma. So she is a marine biologist in one of the most amazing and unique ecosystems on this planet. The Seychelles are just incredible. If you've ever seen a picture of like a perfect beach, a truly perfect beach, it's in the Seychelles. But beyond that, she serves as the science program manager for the Nekton Foundation, where she gets to work towards an equitable world under the waves. Nekton Foundation does incredible work. I'm going to bring up their website below, so check them out too. But let's dive in with Sheena and learn a little bit more about the amazing work that she gets to do to explore the oceans of this planet. Sheena, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. I get to meet you to start the day, and how do you beat that? It's going to be fantastic. It's so much fun to kick off day 3 with you.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I've even got my trusty mug over here, so hopefully the internet doesn't cut out.
The mug will stop that from happening. I think no matter how inclement the weather is, if you've got the magic marine mug, you're set. So I can't wait to get started. And yeah, if you want to bring up your presentation and kick us off, I'm as excited as our audience to learn from you today. So let's get to it.
Great.
Fantastic. Thinking about it. Come on, marine mug.
Come on, work your magic. It should be sharing. Let's try it again.
Let's try again. Oh, she's gone entirely. She's going to come back in a second. This is the fun of video broadcast. We need a cat in the background, some small child to walk through and interrupt the proceedings, and the connection to die. Otherwise, it's no fun. Sheena's back.
It looks like my trusty mug isn't working today. It's raining here, so I do apologize if I cut off. But
that's okay. Let's try the screen share. In worst case, if the screen share doesn't work, but otherwise it works, you can chat with us and tell us a lot about what you're doing. We'll have a bit of a conversation around it.
Exactly. I don't know if you can see it now. Just let me know. But basically, I'll be sharing about a little bit about my love for nature.
Yep.
Especially since today is Valentine's Day. So happy Valentine's Day, everyone around the world, and anyone that's joining in. And it's a real pleasure to be here, surrounded by so many other amazing women doing fantastic work around the world. I've been tuning in, and I've been really inspired by all the work that these fantastic women are doing. So it looks like my screen is finally up, so let's get going. So, like Joe said, I am Sheena Talma. I work for the Nekton Foundation. And if you want to get in touch with me, you can just message me on Instagram. I've got my email up, or on Twitter. So just give me a shout if you have any questions after this. So for people who don't know where the Seychelles is, I am from the Seychelles. It is off the east coast of Africa. So right over here, this whole group that's in red is the Seychelles Islands. It's an archipelago, which means that there's lots of little islands making up one big republic. And there are 2 types of islands that make up the Seychelles. Those are granitic islands, such as the photo that you see over here. It's got high mountains, and you also get coralline islands, which are low and flat, and basically what you think about when you think about the Maldives. So I like to think that Seychelles has both the best worlds, because we have granitic, so high islands, and also flat ones. So let's jump straight into it. The Seychelles is known for its beaches. It's also known for the coco de mer, which is the biggest nut in the world, and it weighs about 25 kilograms. It is massive. So the photos you can see over here, the one in the tree, that's one where it's still got its husk around, and the one at the bottom is when it's dehusked and cut in half. Now, these are protected and are only found on several islands in the Seychelles. Seychelles is also known for its giant tortoises, as well as one of the smallest frogs in the world. So these guys are really tiny. They can fit on your fingernail. So they are less than a centimeter long. So really really amazing little group of islands. There's only about 95,000 people who live here. So I'm lucky to be one of those few. Now, my journey to becoming a marine scientist actually started with frogs. I don't live on the coast. I actually live at the foot of some of the high mountains. And growing up in my backyard, there were always frogs. So that was one of the first things that actually mesmerized me. And I like to think as my journey of becoming a scientist, especially a marine scientist, like the course of a river. So it started up in the mountains where I was obsessed with little tadpoles and frogs, and then moved to the plateau where there were tortoises and terrapins, which are freshwater tortoises, freshwater turtles, and then moved towards the seashore, where I was really interested in the turtles we find in the Seychelles. Then my love grew into the marine world only after I started snorkeling and diving at the age of around 17 or 18. Experiencing the ocean through the lens of a diver or a snorkeler is amazing because you get to see a lot more than you would ever lived under the waves. So one of the things that really mesmerized me is that different types of fish you can find in the sea. It's amazing that you can find fish all the way down to some of the deepest depths of the ocean. Now, as a diver or a snorkeler, you probably only get to go down to about 30 meters, unless you're really specialized. Then you can go to 100 or more meters. But generally, most of us will only go to about 30 meters when we're diving or snorkeling. So one of the most amazing experiences that I had was being able to be involved with the Seychelles First Descent, which was a project that took place in 2019 that went down to 300 meters. So let's jump into that. So this was run by Nekton in partnership with the Seychelles and the Seychelles government. And essentially, the idea behind this was to approach the government. It goes in, we actually have quite a strict plan as to how we involve partners and how we build and share knowledge. Essentially, we establish partnerships. We're an NGO, which means that we don't have a billionaire giving us money. We have to raise all the money that is involved in any expedition, any kind of science plan that we are involved in. So we established partnership with the Seychelles. The government of the Seychelles wanted Nekton to conduct research within the Seychelles waters. And at that time, Seychelles was completing its marine spatial plan. And once we had permission, then we came in and we planned together with local partners on what were the best questions to ask and what were the best things to explore between 0 and 300 meters in the Seychelles Ocean, in the Seychelles waters. Now, this also goes hand in hand with the fun part, which is the field operations, which only generally lasts about 6 weeks. So it's the shortest part of the expedition, but a lot of activity happens. And then we continue our relationship for 2 to 3 years, and we work around the big aims around that government. For example, within the Seychelles, they wanted to have taxonomic workshops so that scientists from Seychelles could learn more about how to describe species found within the Seychelles waters. We then co-write publications, scientific publications, and we disseminate the information. Now, one of the things, and one of the big things for me, is that all the data belongs to the host nation, in this case, the Seychelles. And the data is open access, and the results is disseminated in a way that will not just reach the scientists, but also the people that perhaps don't have a science background. So the 3 pillars of Nekton is to conduct research, create inspirational content, and to create a platform for knowledge exchange. Now, one of the big things for me is that It's all great to do science, but we have to be able to communicate it. We have to be able to take the knowledge that we have and share it with the general public. So the expedition had one really big boat, which had a lot of equipment on it, as you can see. And it had a total of 50 people on board, 10 of which were Seychellois, from security guards to the science team. And some of the most exciting equipment that we had were the submersibles and the ROVs, because that enabled us to go down beneath the waves where perhaps you can never go in general. So we also had satellites on board, so we had really good internet connection, and we could broadcast what we were doing on the boat, not just to Seychelles and to the Seychelles public, but also to the rest of the world. Now on board, some of the Seychellois that were on board, I'm very proud to say that out of the 7 people that were part of the science team from Seychelles, 5 of them, including myself, were all women. So we were all there on board, and we had grants to conduct our own research. For example, I was interested in what kind of fish and fish eggs we could find in the water column. Some of the scientists on board were really interested in seagrass and how deep we could find seagrass. And some were interested in sharks and the presence of sharks around the different islands in the Seychelles. But one of the most amazing experiences is being able to go down in a submersible. Now we had 2 submersibles on board, and the submersibles were used for work, not just for play. And generally, we were so busy like writing down what we were seeing, etc., that we often missed manta rays, as you can see in the background. We were completely oblivious that this manta ray was behind us until we saw the footage afterwards. But there are some of the things that really mesmerize us is the amount of fish, and we use the submersibles to collect samples. So some samples down at 250 to 300 meters, we used a special arm that was attached to the submersible, and that could collect it, as you can see here. And that piece of the sample went into a basket, which was then processed later. Now, this is really important so that we can later identify what are the kind of species that we can find at the different depths. We also took a lot of footage so that we could share it, not just with the rest of the world, but also with the Seychelles public. One of the really cool things is as you go down from 0 to 300 meters in a submersible, is the change you see. So if you're up at the top, close to the surface, as most scuba divers, snorkelers will explore, you'll see a lot of light. Generally, these corals are a lot harder. I like to think of this area as like the metropolis. So this is a really busy city. There's lots of activity happening, as you can see here. And all the footage I'll be showing you is from one of the island groups in the Seychelles called Astove. And this area was so mesmerizing because it had some of the best coral. So you can see it's really healthy coral because they're all on top of each other and they're actually quite colorful. Now, the Seychelles has been affected by effects of global warming, such as higher temperatures that we see in our waters, which causes coral bleaching to happen. So this is at 30 to 60 meters, and you can start seeing that difference. So at this depth, you can see that the coral is quite different. It's not as bustly and busy as the 10-meter footage, but there's still a lot of life and a lot of light. And as we go further down to like 120 meters, then that completely changes again. So what you see here are lots of whip corals. So, you know, these like single-stranded corals, and it also looks like there's less light, which is what happens as you go deeper down into the ocean. And again, a lot less bustle and hustle in this area. But again, what is really cool is that you can see fish in all of those environments. This is at 250 to 300 meters. And for me, this is probably as close as I'll get to walking on the surface of the moon. At least that's what I think sometimes. So this is different. You don't see as much coral. There's definitely no light. We have the lights of the submersible on here. And it definitely looks a little more deserted. But what was amazing about being able to be on the expedition and part of the team that organized it is to see how people's reactions to being exposed to depths of our ocean that you can generally not go to. So we showed a lot of this footage to the general public, to kids at schools, and the intrigue is amazing. So being able to tell the stories to others is a really powerful way to get people interested in our deep sea backyards. But now I want to move on to the second amazing experience that happened in 2019, which is also one of my biggest loves for nature is Aldabra. So Aldabra is an atoll. So like I said previously, we have two types of islands, granitic and coralline. Aldabra is a coralline atoll, which means it's flat. And this one is one of the biggest raised coral atolls in the world. It's also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So this project was called the Aldabra Cleanup Project, and it was a completely different project to Nekton. And Aldabra is special because it has so many different types of animals and plants, especially endemic ones. In fact, there are over 130,000 tortoises that live on this island. It's also a really important breeding habitat for lots of different types of seabirds. They've got spinner dolphins. You have black-tip reef sharks in 30 centimeters of water. So it really is the gem of the Indian Ocean. But like a lot of the rest of the world, this remote and near pristine island is being affected by plastic. And this plastic is being washed up on the shores of Aldabra from other parts of the world. So to summarize this, I will show you a video in a second. So the Seychelles Island Foundation, which is the NGO that manages Aldabra, that looks after this UNESCO World Heritage Site, joined forces with the Queen's College, Oxford University, to recruit a team of volunteers that would go out to this island for 5 weeks and collect as much litter as we possibly could. We had to raise 150,000 pounds to enable the project to happen. We had to raise awareness locally and internationally, which we did through our president, which is through our ex-president who is in this photo. We provided him with footage and photographs, and he took it to the G7 to show our international partners what is going on our own shores. And we had to reprocess the collected marine debris as much as we could. As many of you might know, it's really difficult to process plastic when it's been in the ocean for so long. And we also set out to research the marine debris around Aldabra. So to summarize this, I'll just show you a quick video. So this is in the lagoon, and what you can see here is a lot of the little islets within Aldabra. Lots of sharks, lots of turtles, and a huge abundance of fish. But like I said, there's lots of plastic being washed up on the shores, and it is having an impact on the wildlife. Whilst Aldabra is beautiful, one thing is that it often feels like it wants to kill you because it's got It's very hot. Even the tortoises will get out of the sun at 10 a.m. in the morning. It's got karst, which is this really hard rock around the coast that if you fall on can cause some huge damage. And yeah, just the amount of work it takes to collect a lot of this this debris is intense. But I think one of the biggest things we found from our study is that it's going to cost a lot of money to take out the remaining 500 tons that we estimate is still left on Aldabra. This is just some of the things we had to face when taking the debris off Aldabra and onto a vessel that would bring it to our main island, Mahe. So that's what 25 tons of rubbish looks like. So from both of these projects, I took away a lot of lessons, but two of the ones that really stick with me is firstly that partnerships are really, really important. The Nekton project and the Aldabra cleanup project would not have been able to happen if we couldn't get partners on board, whether those partners provided us with funding or support to be able to do these expeditions and scientific programs. These projects would not have been successful. And secondly, it's really important that we remain positive. I think that's one of the biggest things for me is that there is a lot going on. Sometimes it makes us all a little sad about the world, but there are lots of different people working towards making our planet better. And if we come together and work together, I'm sure that we will be able to make our planet better. Great. And now I'd love to hear some questions if there are any.
Fantastic. Sheena, what a fun presentation that was. If you want to come out of screen share so you can see us, have a bit of a chat, we've got like 5-6 minutes, which is great. If anyone's joining us on YouTube or Facebook, you can share questions in the chat bar. We'd love to take as many as we can over the next few minutes. We do have people tuning in from Texas, Switzerland, Kenya, and beyond. So welcome in our international audience for your awesome talk to kick off our day 3, Sheena. So I'm going to start with it's such a rare experience to get to go into a submersible. What is that actually like? The first time you did that, what was that like? I mean, that's such a magical experience.
Yeah, I think that's such a good question. Essentially, we were on a very noisy boat, and getting into the sub, it's a little bit scary in the beginning because you have to get on a little boat and then climb onto the submersible top and then get in. So it is a little bit scary, but once you're inside, it's really, really quiet and very peaceful. I think one of the things that surprised me was the fact that when you're in the submersible and you're seeing fish around you, the fish are tiny, and that's because of the thick acrylic glass essentially that they've used to ensure that you don't die when you're in the submersible. Yeah, so it makes everything looks a lot smaller. And yeah, I think one of the things that I remember is just how quiet and peaceful everything is. Yeah. The best is you don't have to worry about your air or making sure your buoyancy is right because yeah, you're in this bubble.
Scuba diving can be a little tricky that way sometimes. Chelsea, one of our speakers, our person who wrapped up the festival yesterday, she got up bright and early in Texas to watch your presentation to kick off the day. And her son wants to know how deep the sub goes. Like, where are we going to with this?
Yeah, so these submersibles that we used went down to 300 meters, but you can get submersibles that can go down to 10,000 meters now and 6,000 meters. So it's really, really amazing how much like how great technology is and how it can help us explore. So we were meant to do an expedition earlier last year that would take us down to the deepest depths within the Indian Ocean, which is probably around 6,000 meters.
Wow.
Unfortunately, everyone is experiencing COVID-19. So yeah, we're all sitting in our houses. But yeah, there's some amazing technology coming out.
Yeah. For our American classrooms, 300 meters, about 1,000 feet, 6,000 meters, many, many more. But it's a really exciting time to be interested in deep sea exploration because we now have the technology to go back to the deepest point in the world, which we hadn't had for many, many decades. There's so many new organizations and groups doing exploration around the globe. So pretty fun time. Meha, joining us in Kenya, wants to know, as a marine scientist, is there any way you can suggest about how corals could be restored? You know, corals people have a lot of fondness for. Is there something that we can do to help protect them?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think some of the things we can do is, try and curb our effects on global climate change by reducing our carbon emissions. That's one of the biggest things we can do. But obviously, there are a lot of organizations that are invested in, restoring corals. Here in the Seychelles, there is quite a few organizations that do that. So if you are interested, you should check out Nature Seychelles. They do some stuff. And also MCSS, which is the Marine Conservation Society of Seychelles. They also do some rehabilitation. And basically what they do is they break off some parts of the corals and they grow them artificially.
Yeah.
Or grow them under the sea. So it's some really cool projects going on. So yeah, if you are interested, you can hit me up. My contact details were on, or I can just send them to you, or just follow me on Sheena Talma and I can send you some more information on that.
Fantastic. And I'm so glad you mentioned some of that research where they take corals and grow them and are breeding them and doing all sorts of cool stuff. It's really amazing research. It's all over the world now. So I really do encourage our audience to bug Sheena. She was kind enough to pass along her email address at the beginning of the broadcast, which is always a risky thing to do because you can be absolutely inundated. But that is a good problem to have when people want to hear from you that much. So very, very cool. We're going to pivot to some garbage questions for just a minute because, I mean, this is quite the incredible effort standing in this heavy-duty surf trying to make sure we can, clean up one of the most remote islands in the world is not something that people do every day. Now, you talked about the importance of partnerships with this. Are there you have this test case now. You have this example that you've done in practice of cleaning up a major island and all the incredible work you've done. Is this leading to offers from bigger groups? Is this leading to, sort of a push to make more of this happen around the island chain? If you're still there, the rain may have got her. Let's see. Oh, she's back on a different thing. There we go. Hi again, Sheena.
Back.
I don't know if you caught the tail of that question, but basically, is there any effort now that you've done this test case project of cleaning up one island? Are you seeing sort of more offers of people looking to support you in cleaning up the rest of the atoll?
That's a really good question. I think so. One of the biggest things is that it's not just Aldabra that's being affected. So all of those outer coastal islands are really in trouble from all the rubbish that's being brought in by currents. So one of the biggest things is that a lot of it is from the fishing vessels in the region.
Yeah.
So the government have actually started a program where if they use fishing aggregating devices, it has to be biodegradable. So they aren't allowed to use anything that will stay in the ocean or that won't rot, essentially. We have also taken our research to the government to see what they can do to support. And the same project or a similar project was also done on Henderson Island, where they also found that, plastic is being washed up from other parts of the world. And one of the biggest things we have to do is to lobby with the bigger organizations that are making a lot of the plastic to get them to curb and adapt how they are producing plastic. So it's a lot of work ahead, but I think it can be used as a case study. Yeah. And more, we might be able to repeat it in the future to get some more rubbish out of that island.
Well, kudos to you. And I love that you're highlighting the sort of need for large scale changes on industry level, on a political level. But to bring it back, because we've got a lot of kids that'll be tuning into this broadcast, certainly after the fact as well. If I'm a kid, if I'm at home and I want to make sure that your island does not end up covered in trash, what can I do as an individual?
Well, definitely, one of the biggest things you can do is try not to buy so much plastic stuff. We used to live without a lot of plastic, and it definitely facilitates our life. But there are some things that you can change. You don't have to buy bottled water all the time. You
Right.
can buy a refillable bottled water and just refill your metal water bottle or something like that. You don't have to use plastic wrap. There are alternatives now. So you just have to be mindful, and also if there is recycling available in your community, then use that. Try and stream your waste. And those are some of the small things that we can do on an individualistic level to help the bigger problem.
Fantastic. Sheena, this has been such a fun kickoff to our third day. I really appreciate you sitting down with me. And your mug worked. I mean, at the beginning there, it was kind of suspect, but then we made it happen. We got to see some amazing sights,
Good.
hear about your incredible work. So way to go to you, way to go to your mug. And I really appreciate you tuning in with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Jesse.
Thank you so much, Sheena. We'll see you soon. And stick around for our next few speakers. We got some great people coming up.